He doesn't consider them to be voices. He just thinks of them as his thoughts. My son has schizoaffective disorder, and we know that technically, but we really struggled with his illness, and when he started to display a lot of the behavior that he had, I had to figure out a way to try to make sense of it. And when I was obviously confused and hearing the voices, and we would try to talk to him and ask him if he was hearing voices, and the doctors would ask him, and the emergency room people would ask him, he would just say no. And in his mind, he feels like it's right. And when I really started to listen to him, I realized too that his rationale was not wrong. Whatever it is that he is thinking, they are his thoughts. And I had to learn to accept that. When he would display such odd behavior, he'd go out swimming in the ocean, in the middle of the night. And I would have no idea that he was gone or how long he was gone, and there would be sharks out there. We lived in Hawaii, and there would be jellyfish, and he would come in at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and drop his wet clothes, and I'd say, where have you been? And he'd be, I went out swimming. He wouldn't take a shower because the water hurt him, but he would go swimming out in the ocean. And I'd say, but the jellyfish are out, and he would just be, well, I can see them. They're great. You can totally see them in the moonlight. And I realized over time that his voices or his thoughts were commanding him to go out and try to achieve these personal challenges. And when I would talk to him about that he could kill himself, that he was in danger, that nobody could see him or know that he was out there, that he could drown, he said, well, if I die, and that's okay. And when you would talk to him and say, are you trying to commit suicide? Do you have thoughts of suicide? He would say no. But his thoughts were telling him that his activities and the things that he was doing were personal challenges. And if he managed to survive the challenge, then he was fit to live another day. And if he couldn't, then he didn't deserve to live another day. So he wasn't overtly trying to commit suicide, but he was in his own way. And when I realized that that was going on, that he had become so ill that his thoughts were distracting him, that he could no longer function. He was growing long hair. He would only eat food that he could hold in his hands. He would take these enormous risks. He would walk. I followed him, and he would walk for miles, and he would walk right on the white line, not on the sidewalk. And he would get clipped by cars because he was standing so close or walking so closely to cars, and cars would, shoo out to try to avert hitting him. It was terrifying to watch him deteriorate, and when it happened, it started happening so fast. And I needed a way to reach him. The way I was trying to talk to him, my rationale, my process for trying to lead a trail for him to follow, to get him to understand what I was seeing and the fear that I was having wasn't going anywhere. And I read a book by Xavier Amador that talked about different ways to communicate. And it basically meant that I had to abandon my thought process, my rationale, and just wipe the slate clean and be ready to accept that what he was telling me made sense to him. And I just had to be patient and ferret through what he was saying. And once I did that, I finally got to his whereabouts. And he had a couple, and it allowed us to start back, on the road of communicating. It started building back a level of trust between the two of us so that he was willing to start communicating. And it really was the beginning of getting him well again. And his willingness to trust me enough that he would follow where I was trying to get him to. But I had to use what he was important to him, his thought process, to get him to the help that he needed. I'm Pam Swarts. If I can talk about mental illness, so can you. I'm from California. Thank you.